you're 20 years old, you do not need to be thinking about venture capital yet. You're not going to be able to do that out of undergrad, probably period, much less from Indiana. And I kind of said, okay, watch me.
Hey everyone, this is Rick, and welcome back to The Seed, the Startup Journey, the entrepreneurship podcast sharing the origin stories of amazing founders and their companies in under 20 minutes. Today's episode is with the 20-year-old founder of UndercoverVC, Wade Fletcher, who's bringing equity to student and venture capital. Wade's startup journey is super cool, and we shared it live on Clubhouse a few weeks ago, where our audience got to interact and ask questions. Make sure to follow us on Instagram to be notified of future live interviews. Now, before we begin, a lot of my viewers aren't actually subscribed, so go ahead and smash that subscribe button right now, and if by the end of this video you didn't like our content, just press it again to unsubscribe. Easy enough? Let's get to it. Hey Wade, thank you so much for coming on today. This is actually The Seed's first ever live interview, and I'm super excited to be doing it with you. We are live on Clubhouse right now. To kick things off, Wade, can you first introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you're working with Undercover VC?
Sure thing. Yeah. Well, thanks so much for having me, Rick. It's super exciting. I think we've kind of maybe been in each other's orbit for a while, but it's good to finally collide and get this on the books. I'm Wade Fletcher. I'm a sophomore at Indiana University. I'm studying a dual degrees in computer science and finance. I knew out of high school that I wanted to pursue a career in startups and venture, and identified that business and CS combo as what was going to allow me to do that. And IU was the place that allowed me to make that happen in 4 years. I started Undercover VC back in last August. I realized that while there are tons of fantastic opportunities in venture for students, both for students looking for funding and for students pursuing careers in venture, those aren't always available to everyone on every campus. The doors were closed to me, not because of my own merit, but because the school that I'd chosen to attend to pursue the specific career of venture was not on the list of schools that gets those opportunities. With that, I realized okay, I know there are talented people here. I know there are talented people in Oklahoma, in Nebraska, in Missouri, in South Carolina, in all these states and kind of middle America and the South that are overlooked by the existing programs for students in venture. And there are funds that would love to invest in those students, would love to work with those students, would love to hire those students that are also in those areas. How can we start making connections here in a way that starts to create opportunity for everybody? And I'm actually disappointed it looks like he left the room, but David Bromberg that was in here a minute ago, he and I had like a brainstorming call way back when, and we came up with this concept that, as students, we have no track record to raise a fund, right? To go out and do the Contrary Capital thing. I think Contrary is a super awesome, super cool organization. That was not something I thought I could do, right? To go out and raise a fund with no track record as a 19-year-old, it's not going to happen. And if it does happen, it's going to be a tiny fund that takes 3 years. What we realized is the advantage we have as students over traditional VCs is that we know where to find these students. We know how to connect with these students. We know how to find these startups on campuses, because campus sourcing is super different from normal sourcing. So with that, we realized that, okay, we need to create a way that we can leverage this human capital of these students. We built out the fellowship program, and we're about 2/3 of the way through our first cohort of that. It's gone super well, been a ton of fun. We've got students on 25 campuses around the country, and it's been super fun to get to know them, to get to know the startups on their campus, to work with our 14 partner funds to make some connections there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And wait, you are 19, 20 years old. When I first met you, which was on Clubhouse, I could only listen to your voice. And just from the way you speak, you don't sound like a sophomore in college. And the things you've already done are also incredible, right? You started a media company called ScoreTwo Media when you were 16, I think, and it was acquired last year. You also started CovIntern during the pandemic to help students during internships. So overall, I'm just super impressed, but I'm also really curious, what sorts of upbringing have you had, and why aren't you playing League of Legends like many of my friends did back in high school and are still doing in college?
First, I come from a family where entrepreneurship is encouraged and is pretty central. The story I like to share is my dad went to HBS and then was in venture for a portion of his career when I was really young. One of the things he did with me when I was about a third grader, like every third grader, I had the little lemonade stand of mixing up my powdered lemonade and going out on the street. And I probably sold, a good 3-4 cups the whole day. It was not one of my more successful ventures by far. But when I came in at the end of the day, my dad's response was, okay, we gotta build the balance sheet. Like let's figure this thing out in Excel and see where you stand at the end of the day. And so, I had accounts payable to him of $18 or whatever for water and lemonade and cups. And I say that, not to make it look like I was some business prodigy at a young age, because that absolutely was not the case, is not the case, will not be the case. But I was exposed to stuff really, really young, and that's certainly been an advantage I've had. Like, why am I not playing League of Legends? My family has lived in the same part of South Carolina for 9 generations. So since before America was a thing, we've been in the same county, farming right up until my parents' generation. And that culture of working really hard, and kind of work being the satisfying thing, and just kind of having hard work as a point of family culture has been super duper present for my entire life, and I think is a big part of that. That leads me to maybe spend less time on things like video games, just because that's doesn't make me happy in the way that building cool stuff with cool people and working hard does. I always feel like with these kind of things, it's easy to create, I get up here and brag about stuff I've done, and then you hype me up a little bit, and I do want to today I've done next to nothing. It's been a terrible day for Wade's productivity. At the end of the day, I am a 20-year-old college student. From midnight to 3 a.m. last night, I sat in a McDonald's parking lot with some of my friends, talking and eating French fries. And because I was up to 4 a.m. last night, I've got nothing productive done today. So, it's I could get up here and tell you I work all day, every day. And that's why I've done stuff. But that's just fundamentally not true for me, and not true for anybody else either.
For sure. No, and I love your story of with your lemonade stand and balancing your financial statements. I think for me, my dad's a cardiothoracic surgeon, so maybe he showed me videos of cut open chests when I was 8. Maybe that's why I'm not becoming a doctor. But
maybe.
Would you say startups and VC was a path that was basically forced upon you? Have you, or are you considering other career paths as well?
I would blanket statement, no, it was not forced upon me. It's something I was exposed to a lot from a young age. My dad and I just have the same interests. We get along great. We do stuff like building financial models in Excel. In regards to considering other career paths, I recruited last semester for the investment banking program and for investment banking jobs. I think that's a great career path for the people that choose to do that. It became clear to me through that process that both in the day-to-day work and in the general culture of that industry, that was probably not the place for me. There's still very much the philosophy of you can't get into VC without going and doing your 2 years in venture. I think that's just blanket false. There are plenty of people that have done that, and it's been a successful path. I like a lot to have people tell me you can't do X. And one of the things I heard through that recruiting process for that investment banking program here was, you're 20 years old. You do not need to be thinking about venture capital yet. You're not going to be able to do that out of undergrad, probably period, much less from Indiana. And I kind of said, okay, watch me. 90 days later, I had an internship offer at a venture capital fund. And that's where I'll be going this summer. But no, I've explored all the options, right? I also had a software engineering internship last summer, but I realized that, programming and software is something I enjoy much in the way that painting pictures is different from painting houses. Mm-hmm. I very much enjoy it from kind of the artistic, expressive, I want to build cool stuff for me side. I'm less interested in the problem solving, working on somebody else's big project side. Yeah, so this answer's gotten really rambly. I'm sorry, but I say I've explored a lot of options. I would advise anyone take a bunch of internships and do a bunch of different things. Right? I've had 4 internships in 4 industries. The pieces all came together to arrive at technology and entrepreneurship. And what is that? That's in 2020. That's startups, or 2021. That's startups and venture capital. So that's where I've landed.
Mm-hmm. Got it. And to go along with, your point of how when someone tells you can't do something, you're even more motivated to do it. I've interviewed a couple other high school founders as well. And one of the challenges that they've had is basically people telling them they can't do this, they're so young, and they often aren't taken very seriously because they don't have a track record. So I'm sure you've experienced the same thing. Like, how do you go about dealing with these kind of scenarios?
I think, I mean, first and foremost, you commented at the beginning, yeah, oh, when I heard you speak on Clubhouse, like I didn't realize you were like 19 at the time. My one day in sixth grade, I got up and my voice dropped and I got tall. And this is like, that's not the first time I've heard that. And just like, something like weird and genetic and something I have no control over, like my voice, I think might give me some credibility there. In that, over the phone or over Clubhouse, I feel like I sound older. I feel like that has become an advantage in the last 2 years because the things I'm doing make sense. When I was like 15 and like had this voice and kind of conducted myself the way I do, people are like, who the hell does this kid think he is? And I think, people are always like that. But only recently have I like grown into to the way I talk, if that makes sense. But I mean, for student entrepreneurs, one thing I see a lot is the response to that kind of, and this is specifically like some high schoolers I worked with recently, this was the advice I gave them. Oftentimes the response to that insecurity of like, oh, nobody's going to take me seriously, I'm super young, etc., is to try to make whatever venture you're doing, whatever organization, company you're building, etc., look bigger and better on paper than it is, in a way that starts to come off suspect, right? So I see people a lot of times that are like, oh, I'm the, a 17-year-old that's the CEO of their company, quote unquote. If it's a 3-person company, like, is there a C-suite for you to be the executive of? Probably not, right? It's no less a company. It's no less an important venture that, that probably has legs and will do fantastic things. But are you really a CEO, right? Stuff like that. That like, just call yourself the founder. Like, let's be clear and upfront and honest about like, hey, I'm 19 years old. I know I'm young, but I'm doing this thing, and and hopefully it works out. I think is a much better starting place for students than responding to that insecurity of like, oh my gosh, people aren't going to take me seriously with, I need to appear as something I'm not. And I think investors respond better to that. I think anybody responds better to that if you feel trustworthy and somebody that's not trying to make something that's not there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so you've been like really humble, but I think like you've done so many things, and right now you're still a student. You're a sophomore in college. There are probably also a lot of other activities that are on your plate. Can you share with us, how do you manage your time, and do you have any productivity hacks? We'd love to hear any tricks you might have.
Yeah, well, so first to address those other activities, just because I don't want to create the perception that I'm like a business venture robot, whatever. I play Club Ultimate here at IU. I'm involved with, I guess this one's not too detached. I'm involved with our student managed fund here. But that's on the like investment management side, not venture. And I do Model UN. I've taken a break from that just because virtual Model UN conferences kind of suck. But those are some of the things I do. Of those opportunities, everybody should do. Like if you're like interested in like business, anything that requires like relationships and people and presentations and speaking, like get in Model UN. Like that's like the most defining experience of like high school for me was being in Model UN. Just because you're like, it's a high pressure environment, like you're getting up and speaking in front of people. Anyway, that's so much of a tangent, but I like could not, like, if you take any one thing away from this, like get in Model UN as fast as you can. Okay, your point, productivity hacks, two things. First, I like to plan out my entire day. Like I said, today has not been a productive day for me. I did not do that today. Yesterday was good. From literally like blocking out like, okay, I'm going to take an hour to get in the shower and get dressed and get ready. I'm going to take a half hour for breakfast. And then I'm going to spend, an hour knocking out this assignment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Blocking out your time for the day, like in relatively, tight bars is useful for me. That's not for everybody. Some people find that really stressful, that they're like on a tight schedule all day. So make of that what you will. Secondly, playlists. And I feel like this is my maybe quirkier productivity hack. I have Spotify playlists for very niche situations. Like nothing's public. So if you go and hunt down my Spotify, you'll find a couple things, but nothing important. I've got a playlist for Excel work. Like it's that, like I've got a playlist for Excel. I've got a playlist for a fast shower. I've got a playlist for a short shower. I've got a playlist for like writing qualitative kind of work. Like I have very specific, my mom is an organist, and obviously she's made a career in music. She's been doing the same thing since she was 14 years old, playing the organ professionally. So that rubbed off on me, and music is something super important to me. I know I'm having a terrible, unproductive day. Like I'm not feeling great. Like I'm not feeling it. I'm frustrated. I'm anxious, whatever. I've got music for that. And music is something that I know can change my mood and change my vibe and reorient my day. And I could talk about music for a whole interview.
Yeah.
I feel like I do want to be clear that like those playlists are not like the weird like focus music or like brainwave stuff that people are on. The Excel playlist is purely 21 Savage. The Fast Shower playlist is purely Jack Harlow. They're good music, I promise you. But those are my productivity hacks.
Yeah, I think I definitely need to organize my Spotify playlist. Like right now, it's just everything in one playlist, so probably not the best.
My friends think I'm weird for it because I got songs of like my average playlist is probably like 6 songs because they're pretty focused.
No, I think that's super cool. It might be worth trying. But going along with that, like besides playlists and blocking out your time, do you have any advice for someone like me who, is still a student, but I'm interested in startups and VC and might want to start my own thing in the future?
One of the things you can immediately do as a student to establish credibility is to be up with the current trends. I get the advice all the time. Oh, you should be reading the Wall Street Journal every day. Like recruiters will expect you to like nobody does. Like it's not a thing. But people say like, oh, you should be reading Morning Brew. You should be reading Strictly VC. I'm not a big fan of the whole like read whatever the newsletter du jour is consistently and religiously. I think you should follow Twitter accounts that are relevant to the career you want to pursue, that are also interesting to you. If it's not interesting to you, you're not gonna have a good time. It becomes a chore, and then like, what are you doing with your life if everything feels like a chore? Follow the Twitter accounts that are interesting to you, and then with that will come, probably I would say it only takes probably 3-4 months of just like casually scrolling through Twitter, and you will have a good grasp of like what's the pulse of venture startups or whatever your selected industry. Maybe Twitter is venture specific, so maybe Twitter is bad advice, but whatever the news outlet is, to make it more generalizable, 4 months in you'll have osmosed enough to be able to hop on a call with a random partner somewhere and talk about maybe not their specific industry, but about venture, like in 2020 deals are getting bigger, but they're not necessarily reaching more diverse founders, whatever, like the big trends. You'll know what they are. People talk about NFTs now, they talked about CBD 18 months ago. Know what that stuff is, and I think that gives you a lot of credibility off the bat, that you're not some like classroom student that's taken intro to venture capital in the private markets at your school, and think everything. I would say that the current events and kind of knowing what Twitter is talking about probably gives you more credibility than whatever you learn in that class. But
got it. And wait, before we open the floor up, I also prepared a quick game.
Underrated, overrated.
All right, first one, Tesla.
God, I hate to be difficult. Can equally rated be like? Can I pick it in the middle? Because I think like Tesla's like great, and people know that. I probably overrated. Like the stock, overrated. Yeah, overrated for Tesla.
Okay, NFTs.
Overrated. I think NFTs are here and here to stay. Don't get me wrong on that. I don't think they're going anywhere. I think the stuff Logan Paul is getting up to with NFTs, like NFTs and like NBA Top Shot is another great one. I think they're here to stay. But I mean, we've all seen the little hype curve graphic. What NFTs are now, and kind of crypto generally, I think today, is what 3D printers were in like 20. That's always my example, because 3D printers are super fun and interesting to me. 2013ish, whenever I was like, oh my gosh, we're gonna have one of these, and like in schools need labs full of these things. Everybody needs one in their house. Like this is the future. Like where are these things today? They're like doing some specialized manufacturing, like doing great things, but this is not a household thing. This was never going to be a household thing. I think NFTs are at the top of their hype curve now. I think we'll realize their use soon, but right now we've just got little fad use cases, and I think like collectibles are cool, but that's not. I don't think that's what NFTs are going to be long term, and I don't think they're going to be as present to the consumer going forward as they are now.
Gotcha. Getting 8 hours of sleep.
Underrated, but I'm bad at it.
Yeah, you mentioned you were up at 4 a.m. last night.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay, so this is my last question, and after this, I'll open it up to the floors. But Wade, what would you say, has been the best advice you've ever received?
Best is hard and subjective, so I'm going to qualify best to most career defining. My boss last summer, Wahab Walabi at URX and Facebook, who I interned for in the software engineering job, at the end of the summer, we kind of had the conversation of, like, I had a really great time this summer, but I think like we've probably both identified that software is not where I want to make my career. But I really enjoyed like kind of the venture stuff I got exposed to here, the startup-y side stuff I got exposed to here. I think I'd like to do something in VC. And, I'm applying for this IB program at my school. And, maybe we'll do this investment banking thing for a couple of years. And then, maybe I'll see what's out there in venture capital and we'll explore that, and, maybe after I go to business school or whatever, like way off down the line. He was like, no, like, wait, if you want to be a VC, go and be a VC. Like, don't waste your 20s, like doing some other stuff that, and, again, I don't want to diss the like IB to VC track because it's definitely there, but I knew what I wanted to do. He said, stop screwing around and go do it. Whatever you can do to get into the ecosystem now, go and make it happen. And I'll support you in that. And that's what UndercoverVC sprouted from. So most career defining advice, if you want to be a VC, go be a VC, from Wahaba Walabi at URX.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. My main takeaways from chatting with Wade are his drive, especially when someone tells him he can't do something, his productivity hacks such as time blocking and his music playlist, as well as his career-defining advice of if you want to be a VC, go be a VC. Now, I'll be discussing these 3 takeaways in detail in a separate episode, which will be available a few days after this episode is published, so be sure to stay tuned on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. With that, let's grow our seed of innovation and creativity together, and I'll see you next time.